Fire Tribe, where you at?
I hope you ready. Rising from the ashes and it's getting heavy. Conspiracies, we got plenty and some are scary. From aliens to Bigfoot, extraordinary. Yeah. Dan Unaki, Dan and the homie Romy. I was bugging out all the crazy things he showed me. Jesus bloodlines to the stars in the skies. Always a good time vibing with the Fire Tribe. Hey, so wake up, get it cracking. Rise out the ashes, I know you got a passion. Kick off the convo with theories, many conspiracies, other dimensions, plenty ancient history. Fire Tribe, where you at? Wake up. We about to get into it. I know you can't get enough. At home, at work, it don't matter. Turn it up. Rising from the ashes. You know what's up. Hey. Rising from the ashes.
No, you cut out again.
It's doing it pretty choppy. Man, I know it's unfortunate. It is every time we start, it actually just goes out, and then we're only catching like maybe one every 8 words.
Oh, that's terrible. Sinkhole? Who knows? I mean, weird things happen on this planet. Weird things happen. Weird things happen on this planet. Weird things happen on this planet. Weird things happen. Now, there are lots of little tunnels too called Erdstals. They actually discovered this sunken temple during that massive tsunami. There's a god. There's a god. There's a god. And then there are some that are not really acknowledged. People have photographed strange things off the coast of Spain.
Yo, what up, Fire Tribe? It's your boy, homie Romy. I'm going to read you a little bit of the book Subterranean Realms before we get into this chat. Unfortunately, we did have some audio issues, so this is heavily edited. Karen Mutton is awesome. You guys are really going to enjoy what we were able to scavenge from this interview. And so here we go. This is from her chapter 6 in her book Subterranean Realms, Mesoamerica. Of the ancient civilizations in Mesoamerica, both the Mayans and the Teotihuacan civilizations utilized natural caves and built tunnels beneath their pyramids. To the Mayans, caves were the entrance to the underworld, which they called Xibalba. This underworld was a scary place which had to be reached after encountering a frightening array of obstacles. Some Mayan caves had stone structures built within, as well as tunnels which were connected to the pyramids. Teotihuacan. This mysterious and well-preserved city was built near the present-day Mexico City nearly 2,000 years ago. The most famous structures are the so-called pyramids of the sun and moon, but we have no records from the builders of the complex. Similar to the Giza Plateau, there are rumors of tunnels and chambers connecting all the main pyramids by underground passageways. The labyrinth of caves and artificial tunnels was first discovered by French explorer Desire Charnay, whose 1880 book Les Anciennes Villes de Nouveau Monde recounted his visit to the cavernous quarries 2.5 miles west of the Pyramid of the Moon. Charnay's native guide showed him entrances to several galleries which branched off in different directions at regular angles and led to a large hall-like chambers. One of these halls was shaped like a rotunda and filled with human remains. He followed another straight tunnel, which pointed in the direction of the Pyramid of the Sun. Almost 2 kilometers to the southeast, Charnay made the reasonable assumption that the tunnels were originally quarries for the city buildings, and only later turned into catacombs. In the 1950s, French-American archaeologist René Millon speculated the largest pyramids could have been built over vast underground caves or chambers. He dug beneath the Pyramid of the Sun and found evidence of a blocked pit in 1971. Excavations revealed the entrance to the ancient tunnel beneath the pyramid. This tunnel ran for 100 meters until it opened up a system of chambers shaped like the 4-leaf clover near the center of the pyramid. This tunnel was sealed in ancient times, but when excavated, the chambers were found to be empty except for a few artifacts. During the 1900s to the early 2000s, archaeologist Linda Manzanilla of the Autonomous University of Mexico led a comprehensive examination of the caves and tunnels and concluded that most of them were man-made and not natural lava tubes. Like Millen, she believed they originated as quarries and later were used for funerary and ritualistic purposes. More tunnels branch out from a large chamber resting on rough rock-cut pillars. These tunnels follow a regular path with a fairly constant height and width, although they display none of the workmanship apparent in European and Asian rock-cut architecture. Alright, that's all I'm going to read from this chapter, y'all. You guys are beautiful, amazing existers, and thank you so much for tuning in. I really hope you enjoy. Make sure to check out the Telegram. Absolutely get on there. Telegram, Rising from the Ashes. Shout out to everybody. Today is Earth Day, so if you're on the Telegram, you know that Earth Day, we posted some photos and some pics, and we got a community growing on there, everybody, so go on over and check it out. And then also, if you want extra bonus content, check out the Patreon. It's only $3 a month, and Dan and I each have our own personal shows on there. Check that shit out. I just interviewed an actual architect who lives in Mexico City. He's from Poland, and he's about to start an archaeological dig company, and they're gonna do so much great, amazing stuff. So you can learn more about that on our Patreon. Go over and check it out. Much love, peace, and respect.
Sinkhole? Who knows? I mean, weird things happen on this planet. Weird things happen. Weird things happen on this planet. Weird things happen on this planet. Weird things happen.
Welcome to
Rising
from the Ashes. I'm Dan Unaki Dan.
I'm the homie Romy. What is happening, sir?
What's up, man? How's it going?
Oh, it's going good. It's raining a lot, so
yeah,
catching all them droplets.
Excellent.
Love that. How are you?
I'm doing good, man. A lot of things going on for me in life, so just trying to hang in there and get all the things accomplished that I need to. It's tricky.
Hang in there. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Like a jungle gym of life. You got to swing from the bar, hang, and then do a pull up.
My car took a shit a few days ago, so it's in the shop getting fixed. I'm selling the house, so I have to move out, find a new place to live. So a lot of things are going on right now. It's been crazy, man.
Spring cleaning, baby.
Yeah, but on a good note, this month has been going pretty fucking well with Ancient America. We've been hearing a lot of good responses from it, and we have kind of been overbooking it a little bit, and plus people have been asking to come on the show. So the good news is we're going to extend it into May. That's right. Ancient America again in May. I'm going to bring you some more Ancient America stuff, a little bit more different ideas. So it's going to be fun, man. I'm looking forward to just diving into this full on. Because there's so much, and Ancient America doesn't get talked about that much, in the mainstream or anything. it's always mostly Egypt or Middle East that gets all the recognition. So it's great to like finally bring it home and, you know, have
anything interesting that's ever happened here is usually suppressed instantly. You know?
Covered
anything
up.
And like, so that's kind of the big part of this for me is like we grow up here, dude, and like you know, we're discovering about where we're at, and it's way more special than we could ever have thought.
Yeah, and how much of the stuff is covered up in the other places that we don't hear about also, you know. If we know it's happening here, it's happening everywhere else too. So it's crazy, man. But it's good stuff. Yeah, looking forward to it. Today on the show, we have Karen Mutton. And she has written quite a few books, I think 5. I think we're going to be focusing on 3 of them, which is Sunken Realms, Water Realms, and Subterranean Realms. So
yeah, it's her newest book. It's fucking tight.
Yeah, we're going to get into those subjects. We might get a little bit off America because it's not technically her wheelhouse, but we're going to try to, you know, keep her focused into the America subject a little bit. But we're probably going to have to use some references for some other cities and other places also, just for context. So it'll be fine. It'll be good. What else is going on, man?
Patreon be blowing up, you know. Got a lot of dope stuff on there. So slide on through and do that because you know you want to, baby. Only $3 to support these sweet candy cane boys. We're gonna go around to
$3
the North Pole eventually and do a little dance at the North Pole as soon as we get 1,000 Patreons.
We ain't selling nothing on the show, just ourselves horning it out on the Patreon. So come check it out for $3. You get more of us. If you love the show, then you'll love the Patreon. That's about all I gotta say about that, you know. And what else is going on, Roman? Anything?
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's always going. Just the motions, the birds. I had a sweet interaction with a couple birds this morning. I kept watching them fly around. I don't know what they were, but they were imitating crows. You know, they were like doing the imitation voice, and they would fly to a branch, and the other one would just come and just like try to like knock it off. And I think they were playing, or maybe it's mating season. I'm not sure. But yeah, I've been listening to the birds lately, man. You know, just going out, silence. Yeah.
Learn anything new lately, or pick up on any new clues? New clues?
Yes. New clue? Well, I've been talking a little bit to Chad Stumkey, who we're going to get on the show soon, because I hit him up a while ago, and then he was like, "Oh, I'm not doing interviews right now, but I'll get back to you." And I usually think that means like, "Oh, okay, I get it," you know. I hear from you never, you know. But he actually hit us back, and he's like, "Oh, I really enjoy the show, guys. You know, like you guys talk about interesting stuff. So, you know, like let's do this." And looking into, and I really listened to his Higher Side Chats episode, and I was just like, man, you know, that's a whole other realm of this, you know, ancient America kind of like, you know, segue is all of these, you know, specific layouts. Like everything is so specific. And then I started thinking about the roads, you know, and how specific the roads are, and like to these sacred mounds, or to destroy a sacred mound, or you know, like, so that's really interesting.
And what it looks like from above, the patterns that it makes. Yeah, it's interesting stuff, man. Hello, everybody. Welcome, Fire Tribe. We are here with Karen Mutton. She has authored Subterranean Realms, Water Realms, and Sunken Realms are the three that we're going to be most covering. But she's also written a book about the cone heads, the elongated skulls, and we'll talk a little bit about that too. She is from Australia, so she is having a little audio problems. But we're going to try to fix that in the editing as much as we can. So everybody welcome Karen Mutton. How you doing, Karen?
I'm fine. Thank you for inviting me. I hope I can give some insights on various topics.
Yes, for sure. Start out with a bio, a little bit about yourself and how you got into researching subterranean realms and discovering all these fascinating things.
Well, I used to be an ancient history teacher, so I had that class, but that has given me the chance to dive into areas that really interest me, that are
a bit out of the normal. I'm not saying prudent or private information, but more information
that's ignored, not considered interesting enough, and I try to bring it to the public. And those three books, the last two, Subterranean.
I wrote the Subterranean book during the last long lockdown here in Australia.
It got published last, and the one I
published right before that in 2021 is about water realms and our ancient technology and use of the ancient waterways and agriculture systems.
That's research now has gone into how the ancients grew their own food and processed it, and so I'm writing a book on that as well.
Oh,
yeah.
That's what you're writing currently?
It is, yeah.
Oh, excellent.
I'm going to call that the dawn of food.
The dawn of food.
Yeah.
Great. That's cool. Fascinating. Yeah. How far back in history does food go?
Just when humans on many continents began to grow food and cultivate it. Mm-hmm. Prior to that, humans were hunter-gatherers for hundreds of thousands of years. So 12,000 years ago began the agricultural revolution, and humans started domesticating animals, which had not been done before. So it was probably the biggest revolution the world has ever seen.
I wanted to talk about some of the findings that you have in your new book, your Subterranean Realms, that I find fascinating. A lot of occurrences with these subterranean structures was you would find measurements of resonance that would have like a specific resonant tone, and then that would create a vibration in the chambers. Can you go in on that? Because that to me is super fascinating.
Well, the main one I discovered was in the Hypogeum in Malta. Now, there are a group of people called archaeomusicians, and they actually concentrate upon this new science of looking for resonance in the very ancient structures. I think some of the ones in Ireland, like Newgrange and that as well, but I didn't write about that because it's not underground. But yeah, so the one in Malta, it seems that the resonance there was there to create a feeling of probably holiness, peace, spirituality, and it only resonated with certain frequencies, such as a male voice and a drum. That's the main one. It didn't resonate with females or any other musical instrument. So I think it was 111 hertz, if I recall. So that's amazing. These people were pre-literate. We don't know anything about them except from what we've found in archaeology. The Hypogeum was built many thousands of years ago. I've been inside it. It's fascinating. It's three levels deep. You can do a tour there.
Beautiful structures.
Classical, which came many centuries later.
Yeah, I saw some of those photos, and it was just like how this was built before the cathedral style, before all of it, because it looks
built before the Romans, the
looks
Greeks,
modern,
before the Romans. It was that inside that one, the cover of it on my book, Subterranean Realms, thousands of years before classical Greek, and it was curved too, beautiful curved lines. Now you can do tours.
Okay, here it cut out a little bit, but it's really interesting. You can do tours of the Hypogeum. Check out and Google Hypogeum. And it's in Malta, which is an island in the Mediterranean. The structures look like ancient Greek or Roman structures, but supposedly they're built almost 1,000 years before that. Super fascinating. And they're underground. And when the audio cuts back in, she's talking about the tours that she's done, and they're pretty restricted. You can't really walk around freely or anything.
You know, something held to your ear. You can't ask questions. It's, not sort of tour I'd like to do, but it's the only way you can get down there.
Do you think the Romans or the Greeks got their inspiration from that? Maybe they found the Hyperborean and maybe striked inspiration from that.
Well, they could have. There are beautiful classical lines in there. Yeah, it wasn't a classical building, so especially the curved bits. They quite amaze me. You don't see that actually till late Greece and Roman times, and that was many thousands, 2,000 or 3,000 years later. So, but remember, this was an underground structure, and it was only discovered in about 1903 in Valletta, Malta. So it's just in the middle of a normal street under someone's house. So it's a fascinating place to visit. And they did have skulls in there. 7,000 skulls were found in the Hypogeum, and they've been lost in the museum. And a lot of them had cone heads, which is probably why they got lost.
That was one of the questions I had was like, are they finding the rest of the skeleton with the cone heads? Because most of the times when we see the cone head skulls, we just see the skulls, but we don't see the other bones with them. So they are finding the other bones also?
Well, I don't know what's happened to. They don't know where the bodies have all gone. And the skulls are not on show in the museum. They've put them away. They're not highly elongated like the Paracas skulls, but they are still elongated. And there were elongated skulls also in Egypt, Syria, Russia, Germany, Peru, all over the world, Mexico. So there certainly was some strange race of people whose skulls were elongated further than could be achieved by head binding.
How big are their bodies associated with the skull?
Well, I don't know. They didn't allow. No one's found able to do studies on them because they're just gone.
Yeah,
we don't really know. Yeah.
And then one of the other questions I had was with the subterranean realms there, did they create them, or were they like lava flow tubes and they built into them?
Yeah. Well, Malta's all limestone, so it's not the hardest rock. There's supposed to be plenty. There's rumours of tunnels all across Malta. If there are, that's been hushed up.
Because it is in the Mediterranean Sea, right? So it's like that conspicuous location, that they all these subterranean structures in the Mediterranean Sea, which is like, a hub of life. There was so much going on. Did you happen to find any like other underwater structures or anything in your other research of the Mediterranean Sea?
Well, the archaeologists have found at least 200 Greek Roman type structures in the Mediterranean. There's also Neolithic. There's a Greek one called Pavlo Petri, There's one in Israel called Athlete. And then there are some that are not really acknowledged. People have photographed strange things off the coast of Spain. And there have been people believe there could be structures off the coast of Malta. And and we know that Alexandria and parts of the delta in the Nile was struck by a massive earthquake 1,500 years ago. And those cities, Taunus, Heracleon, they were sunk. And that's all in the historical record. So, yeah, there are lots of sites, but they're not buried very deep because they're only Greek Roman. So they're maybe up to 50 feet deep in the Mediterranean Sea. But a lot off the coast of Africa, Italy, Greece, Crete. Yeah, so they have found quite a lot. And there's many more to be discovered, I believe. And there could be deeper, older structures, such as Spain, which is very contentious, because a lot of what they found are in military areas, so they can't really study them. So there's still a lot out there that's going to be discovered. Yeah.
I love the Mediterranean Sea. When I was a kid, I wanted to walk around it, just around the entire Mediterranean Sea.
Yeah,
and
that's lovely.
I knew it would be a journey. But I wanted to ask you, what was your favorite site that you visited? Because you're an avid traveler, or at least before the whole situation. But what's been your most favorite site you traveled?
Look, I just adore mysteries, especially ancient archaeology mysteries. But we went into the Great Pyramid about 11 years ago, and for some reason, the first thing I did was jump straight into the coffin and lay there. I don't know why. My husband looked upon me in absolute horror. And then all these Asian tourists came in and screamed when they saw a body lying in there. But, I mean, that involved a lot of squatting and all that just to get in and out. But, I mean, nothing can beat that. We saw the Sakura step pyramid, which is, one of the basically the oldest pyramid, and it's got an amazing. I didn't go into the substructure there, but they are opening that up. So, it's probably got the biggest substructure of any of the Egyptian pyramids, and they did that right at the dawn of just dynastic history.
I saw some mentions in the bio of one of the books about Hyperborea. Where's Hyperborea?
Well, it was an old ancient Greek legend up near the polar regions, like also Thule.
Yeah.
They believe there was a sunken continent up there. We do know that the northern Atlantic was joined to England was joined to the continent only 12,000 years ago.
Right.
This whole area was called Doggerland. It was a huge area, which was sunk when the Ice Age ended and everything melted down. So the sea level rose like 300 feet in many parts of the world. And Doggerland was a lot under there. It's all sort of Neolithic. There were no cities or anything, but there were settlements that they are starting to find.
What age is Neolithic? What time period?
Neolithic goes until the Bronze Age. Most places from about 12,000 to 3,000 BC. BCE, I call it BCE, before the Common Era.
Yeah. You also have mention of High Brazil, which I think is a fascinating place.
Well, that's the Celtic legends, and they had quite a few legends of lost islands. There's High Brazil, there's East, there's Leonis, where I think King Arthur's was taken to be buried. And also the Welsh, they had legends of towns that was sunk in tsunamis. So obviously there are memories going back to when the Doggerland was inundated, probably from 12 to 8,000 years ago. And often the inundation must have been quite quick and people would have died.
Yeah.
And the city of Ys, that's what Paris was named after. Now, that was an overnight tsunami, which inundated the town of Ys. YS, they call it. Yeah, these are legends. There's no evidence of them. There are also Frisian and Danish legends of sunken towns too. So we know that there are quite a few sunken towns from the Middle Ages around Holland and even Dunwich in England. They just fell into the ocean during a storm. So
it's funny how fast those things happen, huh? How fast something will happen and like the land will change.
Well, look, we all witnessed that horrific tsunami of 2004 in the Indian Ocean. We never imagined, scientists never imagined that could happen. So now we know it happened in prehistoric and ancient times as well. There were huge tsunamis. When the volcano of Santorini erupted, I think it was about 3,500 years ago. I mean, it was probably bigger than Krakatoa, and it would have destroyed a lot of the Mediterranean towns with tsunamis. So, I've been to Santorini and Akrotiri. They actually preserved a town in the ash from that massive explosion.
Oh, wow.
And a pyroclastic explosion, which blew the whole centre of the island away. So we don't know what's buried around Santorini. No one's ever gone looking for it. Yeah.
What are your thoughts on Atlantis?
Well, we all know it started with Plato, and he gave a very detailed description. He gave measurements of the city and, the buildings and all of that. So obviously there's some sort of memory of an ancient town. The timing he gave was about the end of the Ice Age, and also I think a big comet hit the American continent about then too, and there were massive tsunamis after that. So it was a time when a lot of things were destroyed on the planet, a lot of ancient civilizations that had been, and they're just starting to come back after. And the first one we find is Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, which is 12,000 years old. So I believe that might have been one of the first to come back after whatever happened, destroyed.
Turkey is loaded. So much stuff is found in Turkey. Why do you think that? Do you think that is because it's one of the first places to get inhabited after a cataclysm?
Well, if Göbekli Tepe is there, and there's another one they've just found, can't remember the name, just as old. And I believe these temples they built and buried, they're trying to tell the world what happened. We can't decipher it, of course, but I mean, they built quite a few structures and buried them all. We've only dug up probably one or two of them, and there must be a purpose they did all that. I think they're probably trying to document the world that had just gone through a cataclysm. Yeah. So I certainly believe there are sunken areas, and my own opinion is that Atlantis was sort of a generic term for quite a few sunken areas and cultures that are now gone. But they are preserved in myth, in people around the world and legend.
Yeah, I saw like there's the bird heads on the Göbekli Tepe, and there's also those same bird heads on the back of the Easter Island bodies.
Well, yeah, the Pacific, obviously, there's a lot of sunken land around there, I believe, and especially near the coast of Japan and Taiwan. A lot of that was above ground 12,000 years ago. There's that amazing structure at Yonaguni off that island near Okinawa, and some of it was built above when it was above, and then it was sunk by probably tectonic action or what happened at the end of the Ice Age. They've also found structures off the coast of Taiwan and the Pescatory Islands, and quite a few more off the coast of southern Japan at Kurama. So, yeah, there's obviously quite a lot of area there which was inhabited and then sank.
Yeah, I saw an article not that long ago that they were saying that the whole continent of Europe was not connecting with Asia, and it had, I guess, ran into or connected with Asia sometime in the past, but it was separated from it for a long time.
Ooh, sounds interesting.
Yeah, it does. You didn't send me that one.
Yeah, they were talking about tectonic plates and how there was a tectonic plate in that area, and they kind of smashed together. And
oh, you mean in many millions and millions of years ago?
Oh, was that millions of years ago?
Yeah, that would have been. But yeah, it's amazing. I mean, if you look at what the Earth was supposedly like, millions and millions of years ago, there was a sunken continent in the Indian Ocean called Kerguelen. Kerguelen, I think, Kerguelen or something, and it was supposedly sunk 20 million years ago in the southern Indian Ocean. There's a continent called Zealandia, which was sunk off New Zealand. We're talking supposedly millions of years. Maybe not.
Yeah, it's interesting.
They could all be, they may have all been done in times when people were there to witness it.
Yeah, last month we were talking about Atlantis and Lemuria, and we had Sarah Breskman Cosme on the show. Have you heard of her before?
I listened. Is she the lady from Lao Heritage?
No, that's what dang it, Von Galt.
Oh, it was very interesting to hear the legends from that culture, which is not very well known to the rest of the world. So
yeah. She's doing great work. Yeah, I'm stoked on that.
But Sarah does past life regressions on people, and they were telling her about a time when they lived in Lemuria and telling her all these different facts about it and how it was a woman type of culture, and they didn't really have men around. It sounded a lot like the Amazons, but it was pretty fascinating. They're more spiritual people, and the Atlanteans came to attack them. They wanted some red gems. These red gems were supposedly some powerful thing that they could use to harness all kinds of different energy and whatnot. Pretty fascinating information, though it's from regression. So, I mean, I don't know how invested people want to put their invested people want to get into that, but I mean, it's interesting.
Well, I call that psychic archaeology, and the original information on Lemuria. It was named after an archaeologist called Sclater, who noticed how the lemurs were similar in Madagascar and India or something, and so he hypothesized a land ridge or an island there. But then Madame Blavatsky, who was a theosophist, she came up with all sorts of pretty fanciful information on Lemurians. And when you read it now, to me, it just doesn't make sense at all. Like these big reptiles who laid eggs and were 15 feet tall and all that. So, yeah, there's a lot of information that comes from the psychics, but I don't know, because I'm more interested in legends and actual archaeology and what's written down in the text. So, I accept that everyone's got their own opinion, but I know there was sunken continents from the Tamil Indians, Kumari Kandan. They wrote about a large sunken area. And we know that bridge between India and Sri Lanka was probably man-made about 1 million years ago. They call it Adam's Bridge.
Yeah, Adam's
From
Bridge.
space. So we also know that there are, historically, the archaeologists have found sunken ruins off the coast of India. That they are documented, and I document them in Sunken Realms. And the other really good book on that is the one that influenced me was Graham Hancock's Underworld, where he actually dived a lot of these places around the world. So I get my information from books, but he actually does the diving. So it's pretty amazing. He was my great influence. I wrote Sunken Realms. Now, he was trying to prove a mother sort of culture before the Ice Age, whereas I wrote about sunken realms all through history, right up to the 20th century, when a lot of towns around the world were flooded for dams and reclamation projects.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, a lot of people forget that, there's so many of these places, and they happen quick, and it stays in that region's history. It doesn't reach the pinnacle world history. And if it's not happening in your backyard, or if it's not happening, directly in your country, you might not ever hear about it unless you pick up, something like your book. And so, it's a really, honestly, it's a great work, and it's a necessary work, because we as humans need to understand this earth, in order to understand ourselves on a big level. So I think it's really, really fascinating. And I want to go back to the resonant. I want to go back to the resonant stuff, because I think it's really cool. And
one real quick,
yes,
before you get into that, I was just curious if there's any Australian legends about anything that maybe we haven't heard about, or if there's anything there.
Have you heard of the Gosford Glyphs?
No.
No.
Well, this is a very contentious subject. Now, about an hour north of Sydney, there's a place called Gosford, and in the 1980s, they found some Egyptian carvings in rocks. Now, I've actually visited them, and I believe they're very old, but of course, all the archaeologists will say it's a hoax. They're not real. They were done by pranksters. But there really is something up there. And as I've said, I've visited them, and they have actually been translated by some Egyptologists. And from what I recall, the translation was that Khufu, the one that supposedly built the pyramid, he sent his sons on an expedition, and they landed in that area, which is a long way the other side of the world. And the son of Khufu got killed by a snake bite, and they buried him there. So it's a very interesting place, and there is something that it's like a structure, a rock structure, which has collapsed. So we don't know what's under there. Unfortunately, there's probably not one so-called archaeologist who will acknowledge it at all.
Oh.
There was also a pyramid, so-called pyramid, which was destroyed up at a place called Gympie. And there were also standing stones, which the government destroyed in 1947 in a place called Mullumbimby. So there's been a great effort to destroy any knowledge of an Aboriginal civilization, rather than them as just hunters and gatherers. Now, what I wrote about in Water Realms is how they have discovered that the Aborigines have always been said to be the hunters-gatherers, that's all. They were not supposed to be cultivators of crops or domesticators of animals. But they've found in my state of New South Wales and in the state below us that they built these fish traps, huge fish traps and eel traps. So they were catching fish and eels in these stone traps 6,000 years ago. And a lot of it was destroyed but now it's all been acknowledged and it's national parks, and we are starting to see some of what the Aborigines were capable of doing. And also they were said to not be able to grow crops, but now we've discovered, looking at old records from explorers, that they were growing certain crops. And it's not, the history is not what we've been told about this country.
Yeah, wow. That's awesome. Yeah, I never heard of that before, ever. You said Mulbimbi, Mullumbimbi?
Yes.
I thought that was like, isn't that the dinosaur that's in Africa?
No, it's a town in northern New South Wales. But there are records of stones, and they were standing stones, like Stonehenge type things, which were destroyed deliberately, bulldozed. And people are now finding the old records and finding the stones, which are still lying around. And so there is a researcher called Steve Strong and his son Evan. They're the ones who are doing a lot of this research into ancient Australia. And they are the ones that took me on to the Gosford to see the Egyptian hieroglyphs. They're up a few people, but they encounter a lot of resistance from the archaeological communities, and often from the Aboriginal tribes and from the government. So there have also been some very strange skulls dug up in Australia, and people who find them find themselves in big trouble.
Oh, really?
So, yeah, there's a lot of suppression in this continent. A lot of suppression. Yeah.
Do you know what the skulls look like, or?
Look, I'm trying to remember. I did an article on some of the very heavy sort of Neanderthal skulls that were only around about 20,000 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Australia, according to the textbooks, did not have Neanderthals or Homo erectus, nothing like that. So these skulls are an anomaly because they look very, very heavy set, but then they found more modern bodies older than that. Now, what happens is the tribes get them back and they're buried. So, they don't get very unusual skulls and bodies were found. One had, they were buried together. One had very, very large eyes.
Where is this?
Where was it? It's not allowed to be revealed because
okay.
The farmer has been threatened. It was written about in Nexus magazine, and I did actually write about it too, but I can't remember the details. But they were not like any other human bodies found anywhere, these two different bodies. So, yeah, a lot happening here, and it's not healthy to find things that are out of the box archaeologically. But I'll be honest, no one's ever threatened me, or I just go, I'm just below the radar. I'm not affiliated with any university or academic institution, so I don't work for anyone. I'm just a housewife who writes books, so I can write what I want. And I have not had to knock on the threats like a lot of people have had, so I mustn't be hitting the really heavy stuff. So I'm kind of glad. I don't want these black helicopters or black ops at the door.
Yeah. Why do you think that they try to hide this stuff in archaeology? Why is it so hidden?
Okay. We lost again?
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Why do you think they try to hide this stuff in archaeology? Why do they want it to be hidden?
Look, it's been going on for probably at least 150 years. You'll go back to what the Smithsonian has hidden and destroyed. They've done it all over the world. They just don't want to acknowledge certain things. I don't think they want to acknowledge the antiquity of humans. They don't want to acknowledge that certain races were in certain countries. The tribes people around the world don't want it acknowledged that other people were there before them because it can affect their land rights. You see that in America and Australia. In America, very much so, with Kennewick Man and the Spirit Cave. Very unusual skeletons found in America, which didn't please the archaeologist and didn't please the tribal people because they didn't look like them. Yeah, and originally a lot of the religions didn't want it acknowledged that humans might be a lot older than it's said in the Bible. Well, we know that now, but they didn't like that 150 years ago. And archaeologists are very conservative people. They don't want to acknowledge that they've totally got things wrong. And so it's a bit of everything, government, religion, tribes, archaeologists, academics. We shouldn't be like that. We need to know truth.
Yeah, exactly. You find that a lot as a lot of people, just want to cover stuff up because they don't want their paradigm broken, I guess,
That's right. And I try to break paradigms gently. But, you find like in China when they found those very European mummies out in the Tarim Basin, down out where the Uyghurs live today. The Chinese were very, very upset about that because these people were 100% looking European with European technology and older than any Chinese mummies they'd found. And that was all kept hush-hush. That upset their national pride. So it happens all over the world. It really does.
Yeah. So yeah, that was my little segue, but I know Roman had a question. Go for it, Roman.
Oh, I love that though. I love Australia, and I know I have the intuition and inkling down that there's the story we've been told that it was flooded with British prisoners and so on and so forth, and the constant suppression of the true settlers like Aborigine and Polynesian settlers and stuff. So yeah, we could do a deep dive for a couple months just into like all of the mysteries of Australia, because there's also magnetic anomalies there too, right? And like UFO sightings. I've heard about what is it called? The Mim lights?
Oh yeah. They're a bit like the Phoenix lights, I think. Out in the desert. There's certainly strange aerial effects. But I'm sure there's American bases in the middle of Australia doing very deep and clandestine research.
Oh.
Who knows what they're developing out there. Yeah, out in Alice Springs at Pine Gap. That's it's one of the deepest and most secret military installations in the world. Woomera. Wow. I went through Woomera many years ago, and we went to the local pub, and it was full of American servicemen. That's where we did our rocketry in the 1960s. So who knows? When you got the military involved, anything's possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially after after the World War II, and when like the new direction of where military was going, and it just completely changed the game. When Roswell happened and UFOs and stuff. So, but that's a whole other topic. I love resonance. I think that we as a culture, as a species, as a planet, we have the Schumann resonance, right? Which is like the resonance of the earth. And, everything runs on vibration. And, I think that this has been understood for a lot longer than we're being told as well. And absolutely. So when I read that you were putting those findings in this book, it kind of clicked for me. I was like, yeah, absolutely. It makes so much sense, and the way these things are built, do you think that they built these subterranean structures and then figured out the resonance afterwards, or they maybe knew a science of resonance and then built the structures to do that?
you cut
Hang
out
on,
there.
I didn't hear
Unfortunately.
much of that.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's breaking up.
So okay, let me just say that. Let me ask: did the people? Do you think that they built these structures for the purpose of using resonance and to meditate and to have like a holy space, or do you think they found that out after they built these subterranean structures?
I've never thought of that question. I do believe that the ancients, many of them were able to use subtle energies that we are only just learning to understand. And I still don't know how they built some of these with their so-called primitive tools right deep into the earth. So I believe they must have been using some sort of subtle energy power. Now, Chris Dunn, who wrote about the Giza power plant, he believes, I think it was some sort of ultrasonic technology. And certainly with the Egyptians, I think there was some sort of electrical technology which we're not sure of.
Robert Bouval.
Yeah, these people, they've given a lot to archaeology and they're not really appreciated. But there's this thing in Egypt called a Jed Pillar. You probably haven't heard of it. It's just like it's like a pillar with 4 little strokes on it. It looks just like an electrical part. I don't know the terminology.
Yes,
but,
yes.
I believe that could have been some sort of power source we're not unaware of. We've also seen the pictures from the Dendera temple, which look like the big crooks. What's that thing called? A cathode tube. Yeah. So I have to believe that they couldn't have built. Like going to one of the ones I wrote about in Subterranean Realms was Sakura. Now, this was basically at the very beginning of Egyptian history. For 3,500 years BC. Now, they built a 90-foot deep shaft, 90 feet deep, and then tunneled underground all around this step pyramid. Now, how on earth do you build a 90 feet deep shaft if you don't have certain things? They didn't have iron technology. They didn't have digging tools, apart from sticks and all that. I mean, it just doesn't make sense how they could have done all this.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's what annoys me, that these things are glossed over by the archaeologists. They just mention, oh, yeah, they've got this, it's there. Not how did these people possibly do this with the most primitive so-called tools? I mean, they only had copper. And one of the things I found interesting was some archaeologists wanted to do an experiment on how they did it.
Hold up. Do an experiment on what? We lost you at do an experiment.
Yeah. He wanted to see how quickly they could dig into it using the sort of saws, a copper saw that they had. And he was amazed to announce privately that he managed to do 6 inches. He didn't tell you that it took 30 to do it.
Oh, wow. 6 inches. That's crazy. Yeah, I'm wondering if there was some sort of resonance like technology or something focusing to like either soften stone or, you know, using certain geometric shapes. Yeah, I'm not sure. Plants? Very interesting.
I did mention that there is a plant that can soften granite, and there's also one in Peru. But I mean, soften, not make it turn to liquid. It would have helped. Yeah. But I'm talking about 90 feet deep shafts.
Yeah, that's
no
really
amount of
deep.
plant's going to help that.
Yeah, there's the legend of the birds, right? In Native American culture, where they say the birds brought back the plant material to melt the stone with. So
yeah, well, sometimes the legends give information, don't they? We've got to interpret them, though.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, see if there was any, while you're doing your research for the Subterranean book, if there was any like strange altars or types of, like, I don't know, like maybe even basilicas or altars or something where there was like definite worship going on, and it was like a really renowned underground worship center or altar.
Oh, yeah. Well, I wrote about the Mithraeum. Mithras was a Roman god from the Middle East who was worshipped in underground temples all through the Roman Empire. And can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, did you hear? I used the image stopped. Anyway, Mithras was a god and he was worshipped underground. They built temples for him. He was supposedly born underground, and he was worshipped all through the Roman Empire. The Nymphaeum, they worshipped the nymphs in Greek and Roman times underground. And, of course, we go into India and we have all these amazing stone structures built into the rock at places like Ajanta and Ellora, and various places where they did amazing sculptures and rock cutting around about 2,000 years ago in the Buddhist era. So one of them is they had a technology. We're not sure what it was, but they could turn rock into like mirror shine. That was in one of the caves. We don't really manage to get this sheen that was almost like a mirror. It's a very unusual technology, and that was about 2,200 years ago.
Probably high heat. You got to get high heat for that, right?
Sorry, I can't hear you.
Oh, I was saying, yeah, you got to probably get high heat, something like, like almost like a blast of some sort of.
They say it was like emery, something it rubs. The Persian Empire, they created using sort of emery or some sort of stone which can really make things smooth. But I think the Indian ones are even better. We're not sure how that sort of share. Just rock temples they built in the Buddhist era.
Wow.
Yeah.
Your question, Dan.
Yeah, I was just going to kind of segue into like the Americas, and I know you talk about some specific lakes in the Americas and Florida and California, Wisconsin. I was just wondering what you could tell us about those, what they found there, and what interesting things you found.
There is Rock Lake in, I think it's Wisconsin. There are definite structures which are underwater now, stone structures.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if they've ever been dated. They call it Rock Lake. What was the other one? What other places?
Florida and California.
Well, Florida, I don't know if they've found structures, but they've certainly found ancient skulls under there which are very well preserved, because I've been to Florida a few times and they've got these beautiful, pristine, underground, beautiful waterways. I'm not sure if they found structures in Florida. California, can't recall any I found there.
Mount Shasta?
Off the coast of La Jolla, they found something. Was certainly an Indian settlement.
Okay, so here we lost contact for a little bit. The robot ether internet, demon host decided to not let us know about what was off the coast of La Jolla. But it's really fascinating, about all of these underground waterways here in ancient America that connect to these ancient mounds as well. And Yeah, there's so much good stuff going on here, guys. I do apologize for the iffy connection, but what we have been able to collect and connect has been really great. Karen is amazing. Make sure to get her books and check out her stuff if you're interested in this stuff, which we know you are because you're lovely human existers. Anywho, so she didn't really find too much in California, she said, but yeah. Here we go. We got connection again. Ready?
Have you heard of the big city off the coast of Cuba they discovered 20 years ago called Mega?
No, go into that a little bit.
Well, this is an interesting one because most of the structures are not that deep, but this one's about 2 miles deep off the coast of Cuba.
Oh, wow.
Now, this research vessel found it 20 years ago.
20 years ago, and they took some images with LiDAR technology.
How did it get so deep? Obviously, it possibly was on a
peninsula that sank. Also, it could have been
tectonic forces, but that one was hushed up. Did you get all that?
Yeah, for the most part. What about sinkholes and stuff like that? Is that like a swallowing up cities? You think sinkholes could have swallowed up a city like that and then brought it down to that type of depth of 2 miles?
Well, obviously some terrible tectonic activity occurred.
Yeah.
I'm sure it would happen very quickly. Sinkhole, who knows? I mean, weird things happen on this planet. Weird things happen.
Yeah, for sure.
And I believe that's probably off limits now, and they're not allowed to go back. But that was a fascinating. That one was hushed up pretty quickly.
So I a lot of these structures that you've written about in Subterranean look almost like they could have been like the building was like swiped in half, almost like it's so flat and so clean on one side, and there's these doors, these windows, and it looks like almost like it was a bigger building, and then it just got cut in half. Do you think that has ever happened? Do you think that that's a possibility?
Well, I certainly believe that tectonic forces could have sent quite a few of these places underground. But no, I hadn't really noticed that, to be honest. But look, anything's possible. Anything's possible. We don't know enough about this planet. We don't know enough about history. Why were so many things buried? I mean, the underground cities in the Gorami Valley in Turkey. I mean, they found at least 20 of them now, which were hollowed out by hand. Up to possibly 4,000 years ago. I've been in one of them. And why did they do it? They obviously were trying to escape from something. They could have been invaders. It could have been some celestial event or cosmic event. Like a flare could have destroyed. We don't know because it's all before writing. But that's a fascinating place to go. I'd love to go back there. The Gorami Valley.
Are there any carvings or inscriptions or art in these subterranean tunnels that you have found?
Generally not. The ones in Turkey, well, people were actually meant to live there.
So Darren Kuyu?
Yeah, you find things like grindstones, and they had these amazing, massive millstones for doors, which would be rolled from the inside, and no one could possibly get in. If the invading army, and there are a lot of invading armies through that part of the world throughout history. Mm-hmm. The last one being the Seljuk Turks, who came and massacred a lot of the Christians who were hiding in there. But once they're in there, no invader could get through these doors. It was just basically impossible without dynamite. So, they're amazing. And the one I went through was 8 stories deep, and people lived there for months on end.
Really? with just like the bare minimums, or did they like haul in some electricity or
Well,
anything?
the ones we don't know, they would have had to get light from somewhere. They had air vents. They would have had to have their animals and their water down there to survive for months on end. So, we didn't see all that. That was all long gone. But there were hidden air vents, obviously, all around there. So any invader would not know. Because that would be one weak point of living underground. If someone finds your air vent, they can sort of, smoke you out, can't they?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you're right.
But they
That's
are
interesting.
fascinating.
What do you think about what's been buried and what's been dug out, or like what's been built and what's been buried, right? Are some of these structures you're finding that that have simply kind of like maybe been covered with a bunch of earth, and then some have obviously very much been like built out, right?
Most of them, I believe, were built underground. There's one which was buried. It's called the Hawara Labyrinth in Egypt. Now, this was written down as a legend, but Herodotus, who was a Greek historian, visited it 2,500 years ago, but now it's disappeared. There was a researcher who recently passed away, unfortunately, called Carmen Bulter, who used
She passed away?
Yeah, a few weeks ago.
Oh wow, she is really great. I've heard her on multiple podcasts, and she has done tours with people in Egypt and everything, right?
Well, she did some work, she and her team, and they actually have mapped this buried structure, which was not buried, always buried. We don't know why it's buried now. And she has discovered it was 2 stories deep. It goes down to about 60 feet. It was 2 levels, and no one's excavated it. Now, it seems like the great Egyptologist, his name escapes me at the moment, but Petrie, he probably found the roof of it and just thought it was the floor of something and didn't dig deeper. So I think they know where it is, and they don't know what they're going to find down there. But according to Carmen, she found it, did studies from LiDAR technology, and definitely it's a 2 stories with like the ancient space. That was how it got buried. We don't know why, but of course, all the ones underwater were inundated.
Yeah.
I don't believe anyone built underwater these structures. But yeah, so most of them were deliberately built underground.
What's the most consistent kind of shape you find? Like a lot of the similarities that you see are like Celtic and South American, right? There's a lot of like Celtic spirals and things like that in South America. Have you found any correlations that was like the most widespread like shape?
No, I'm not really, haven't really noticed anything like that. Every continent seemed to have its unique sort of shapes, but I believe there possibly could have been contact between different continents in prehistoric times. I mean, you just have to look at the Olmec statues in Mexico, look at their racial characteristics.
Yeah.
And basically all over the world you find things that look like they came from somewhere else, but they're never explained. It's very possible that the Mexicans and ancient Chinese had contact. It's just over the ocean, because a lot of their statues actually almost look Oriental. So it's you've had archaeologists, but more like historians writing about this for hundreds of years, but the traditional archaeologists don't really like to talk about the diffusionist, believing that people from different continents mixed in ancient times. They just don't seem to like it. Although I believe it's very possible and very probable, actually.
Why not? I mean, I don't understand why the segregation needs to happen. It's very naturally attuned for us to want to kind of share our our energy or our spirituality and food and language and love and stuff. So, there's something going on with that for sure. What about because we talked about the name is escaping me right now. In the Mediterranean.
Crete, Malta.
Malta. Yeah, we talked about Malta. And that's like an island. It's a small island with a pretty deep subterranean structure. What are other like kind of really small islands that have those? Any small islands?
Well, if you move to Sardinia, they have very ancient buildings. This was
Ancient what?
built big water. I wrote about one of them called Santa Cristina. So very advanced technology in building and astronomical findings down there as well. So yeah, the ancient Sardinians.
What's the name of that one again?
About them.
You cut out a little bit on that. We missed the name.
This they built water wells with the main technology advanced.
Yeah, the waterways. That eludes people too. That's a crazy technology. Water's not a light thing. 20 gallons of water is, it's like 100 pounds plus, So once you start getting a couple hundred gallons, you're talking thousands of pounds. Like this is no joke. So that stuff's super fascinating too.
Yeah, they found one well, and I wrote about up to it shows the moon or the stars at a certain time of year only. So they had astronomical knowledge too.
Yeah.
Did you catch that?
Sort of. Do any of the subterranean tunnels lead to specific structures underground? Like if they were getting from one structure to another structure from the underground tunnels? Or do they have like any type of archways before they go from like a cave into the tunnel area? Is there archways?
Are you talking about anywhere in particular?
No, not necessarily, just a generalization. Or if you have some specific sources, yeah, you can go for it.
Well, not so much in ancient times. Like the tunnels were built for to find. They were built for mining mainly, but they have found tunnel systems under many medieval towns, which go for miles and miles and miles. And towns like Nottingham is built over all these tunnels and caves. Quite a few in Europe, especially, and legendary ones in South America. But just going through this book, I'll just mention some of the, if I can find it, some of the towns which had, I can't find it quickly, but yeah, I'm thinking Budapest, Dorigia or somewhere like that in Romania. Yeah, I can't find it quickly. But yeah, so many medieval towns. Cadiz in France had massive tunnel systems built. Yeah. They could have been either before that from ancient times. The one in Cadiz, there's only one guy that goes down there. He sort of is a custodian of them, and he's the one that keeps sure it's safe and that. And there's probably many more to be discovered.
I haven't found
any in Europe that are linked to other towns. They could exist. Could exist. Now, there are lots of little tunnels too called Erdstals. Have you heard of those?
No.
Yeah. Well, some guy said there's 12,000. He wrote a book saying 12,000-year-old tunnels leading all the way from Scotland to Turkey or somewhere.
Wow.
Now they don't. That's a bit not true. They're small tunnels, which are smaller than a human.
Oh.
Distributed from Scotland. They're not all linked up. Now, because they're
they're not all linked up, and then you cut out.
All about 3.5 feet tall. So maybe it was a race to small people. Who knows?
Oh, you cut out there for a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay. You heard about the Erdstals?
Yeah, we got you with the Erdstals, and they're not necessarily all linked up. And then that's where.
Yeah, well, as I said, they're not suitable for humans of our stature. If they were built for a smaller race of people, about 4 feet tall. That's a great mystery. They're mainly found around, a lot of them around Germany, Austria. So they're just tunnels that go in, a few meters or a few yards, and then they stop. But there's also these strange tunnels they found in Brazil, which they now say were built by sloths. Prehistoric sloths. They're all through parts of Brazil. They say, well, these massive sloths in the Ice Age tunneling. But that's all in the book. I mean, it's a bit of a stretch, actually. Why would sloths build these huge tunnels big enough for humans?
There's like in America, we got in Kentucky, you have the Mammoth Caves, and there's this whole mystery that happens because there's magnetic anomalies in Kentucky. It's like the magnetic hotspot of North America.
Oh, okay.
And so people have been seeing like goblins, like gremlin creatures, like over the past 100 years. There's been a few different studies, and then now they made a documentary on it called Hellier, which is great. People love it. I actually recommend you check it out. It's really good. It's called Hellier. But it kind of reminds me that we also have Celtic lore, right? We have fairies, we have the Nordic mythos of the underworld, and there being smaller people that live in the underworld, and that's how they get around. So we like that around here. We think that
Dwarves.
Could definitely be
Dwarves,
absolutely.
Well, in my book Scattered Skeletons, I wrote of a lot of the discoveries of dwarf graves. Cemetery in Tennessee, I think they found one. And I mean, a lot of the countries have the legends, like the Menahui in Hawaii, the Pakeha in New Zealand, of these small people. Of course, Ireland's got them, and they're often considered, they're either helpful or quite nasty little creatures, or tricksters. So it depends. I don't know if they're friendly or not. And as for these places where things are seen, it's probably a portal where different animals and beings appear and disappear at various times, which I probably think is what Sasquatch or Yowie, because I can't seem to find them and where they live and everything, but they do appear and then disappear. So I think they come from another realm. We've got them in Australia too. We call them Yowies.
Yowies.
Yeah.
That's cool.
That's what I was kind of getting at with the whole idea of the archways between like the cave entrance and into the tunnel, because I think maybe that these archways are portals to different dimensions, not really necessarily a different dimension, but from land to water, or from land into a cave system, or from the top of a mountain way or something into sky.
We lost you.
Yeah.
You there?
Yeah,
I didn't hear any of that.
No.
I was gonna say that's what I was kind of getting to with with the archways, is if they are in the cave entrances into the tunnels, because I think that maybe these portals or archways are just there to signify like you're going into a different dimensional place, like such as like you're going from land to water, or you're going from land into a cave system, or if they're on top of like a hill or a mountain that you're connecting with a spirit world on the mountain. And that's why they are having these archways there. It's a transformation of energy through the archway into a different dimensional place in space-time.
Well, in my book, I wrote about a lot of the legends. I wrote about the Asian legends of Shambhala, Agartha, and Patala. And apparently only people of a certain vibration can get to those places. I certainly believe Shambhala could exist on another dimension. Then there's all the underworld stories of Europe, whereas the underworld seems like a creepy sort of place, whereas in Asia it's more of a, like Patala is supposed to be a very joyous place. But when I wrote about a lot of the underworld, and the Egyptian underworld, the Duat, that wasn't a very pleasant place, nor was the Mayan Chipalba. That was a very unpleasant place. So my guess is now, from what I read, that there is people.
Your guess is that there is people. Your guess is that there is people. Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Is that you said your guess is that there is people, and then you cut out.
Still can't hear you.
Oh, hello? Yes? No?
Back now. I'm back.
Okay. We lost you at your guess is that there is people.
There are people possibly living in the tunnels in the inner, beneath the surface. And they don't really want anything much to do with us. But then there are some probably evil ones too who come and attack people.
Oh, yeah, that's fascinating.
National parks. Where do they go?
Oh,
Yes.
Yeah.
They might. I think they're probably good and bad. I've heard good and bad legends of. That's getting into Hollow Earth stuff, which is very plausible. Because we don't really know what's down there.
Yeah, what do you think?
Well, it's cavernous, right? We've just discussed that. You've seen that. We know that it's cavernous. There's underground cities, there's caverns, like we have stated that. So hollow, I mean, it's maybe somewhere.
Well, yeah. I mean, it doesn't have to be. As I said, it's caverns, definitely. And now they've discovered there's massive oceans beneath into the mantle. I mean, they're coming up with new stuff all the time, these scientists. They don't really know what's down there.
Yeah.
Just guessing. Come on.
Well, I like the time period we were talking about earlier, in Europe when they were building a bunch of tunnel systems, because it kind of ties into some of this side research I'm working on, trying to figure out the age of the alchemist, right? When alchemy was a large part of the royals, families, and early spirituality, so old cathedrals. And some of them, at least written by, some of the people I've read, that they would be as tall underground as they are above ground. And that goes for any of these old, like French, like really, classical and the Gothic cathedrals and everything would be as deep underground as they are above ground. And then underground would be where there would be a lot of alchemical processes happening. They have these Black Madonna statues, which is supposedly pre-Christian. They're actually of Isis as opposed to Mary. And so there's that whole time period in Europe when that's going on, especially in France, which is home to some of the most pronounced alchemists of our time. I found that pretty fascinating. So can you go into that time period a little bit more? Because were they just building a bunch of underground structures at that time?
Well, obviously they needed substructures for all their buildings, crypts and all that in all the cathedrals, but there were a lot of medieval tunnel systems. And when you look at the Knights Templar, they built massive tunnel systems beneath Jerusalem. They built some in Malta. They built some in England, which have only just been discovered. I don't know if you know much of their history, but they were immensely wealthy, and they were eventually wiped out. So I think maybe they built some of their tunnel systems to escape from the persecution of the kings. And they're quite amazing tunnel systems they've discovered. So, yeah, there's certainly so much medieval stuff I found. And I see places like Nottingham and under Budapest and so many other towns I can't remember the name of, Plisk in Bulgaria. Whole underground cities were built, meaning miles and miles of caverns, and we don't know. It was many parts of Europe. I went down to the Parisian catacombs. That was a fascinating place. But we know that was built from quarries. So they actually filled in a lot of the quarries and used them for burials. But there are quite a few places under churches and cathedrals in Europe, where they have these massive burial areas and thousands of bones, especially in the Czech Republic. I've seen a couple of them there too. There's so much in the way of mysteries in the Middle Ages too.
I was going to bring up
some bones were.
Go ahead, Roman.
I was going to say, kind of on a creepy alchemical side. I was reading in some Fulcanelli that blood is often used when trying to do some of these alchemical processes, and if cathedrals were some of the laboratories for that, some of these bones could have not necessarily been, a place to bring your dead, but maybe they were brought live and then later. They were murdered for this, because there's so much talk of blood and sacrifice and all this stuff. So that was just a weird little dark side tangent I like to bring up.
I think Satanists have been practicing underground for thousands of years.
Yes.
People who worship the dark arts. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're probably still doing it under buildings and crypts of churches and that now. And tunnels where supposedly children are being kept captive all over the world. Gosh, that's a creepy one.
I was going to, because we're on this topic of the medieval era, you also mentioned copper piping and plumbing and stuff like that go on in these cities. Can you talk to us a little bit about what their plumbing and stuff was like?
Which places are you talking about?
I don't know. Rome, I think is what I heard you talking about before.
Oh, in ancient places? Well,
yeah.
We did plumbing in certain parts of quite advanced, from India to Scotland to Crete to Egypt to Sumer to some of the Mayans. So, they certainly... They found the interesting thing about Egypt is we haven't found much about their plumbing, but they have found there was supposed to be representation of your. They obviously had it. We just haven't found it. We had it in a tomb. Had it like they.
Cutting out.
So doing amazing tunnels for irrigation and for wastewater, and same within ancient Indus Valley. It's building starting mainly in Sumer.
We lost you. Hello?
Up there?
Hello?
Yeah, unfortunately, that was a long one. That was like 2 minutes maybe.
Yeah, I was asking you about the copper pipes, and then you had mentioned several places, Sumer, and then we lost you.
Well, I think I ended on Sumer. Basically, saying plumbing is over 6,000 years old in some places, ancient plumbing. Yeah, so high technology there too.
Goes back really far
nice.
then. Because I've heard a lot of people talk about castles and stuff and how there's no bathrooms in castles. But so they already had plumbing to separate their not good water from their poo water.
In some countries, yeah. But in Europe, they lost the technology from the Romans. The Romans had that technology. It was lost for hundreds and hundreds of years. And so a lot of these castles, they hadn't rediscovered the ancient Roman technology of doing things, of separating sewage from drinking water. So it all had to be rediscovered.
Have you found any correlations with these? This is maybe even off topic because it's not going necessarily subterranean, but now we're talking about structures and plumbing. But these architects are pretty like prized people in an ancient society, right? Like, because not everybody's an architect, and you have to learn and train with very specific high education. So it's a very selective thing, and it's not good. I don't know where I was going with that, but when I try to look up architect stuff, it's either really fishy, like they say they built things in just a couple years, or this was built in 2 years, which seems impossible. Like, it doesn't seem that can happen, because it takes them 2 years to fix the corners on the roads out of my town. It's crazy. What's your take on that?
We know some ancient architects, like the guy who supposedly built the step pyramid was Imhotep. He was very highly regarded in early dynastic Egypt as a god. He's a bit one of those polymaths like Leonardo da Vinci, good at everything. And the Romans, we had some very good books left from them about architecture by a fellow called Vitruvius. The Romans left us a lot of books which were luckily translated by the monks in the Middle Ages. And it was when they started translating all these Roman books and Greek books that they started to discover how to build things properly again, and as the Romans had. And discovering these ancient manuscripts brought Italy back into the Renaissance, where they learnt all that stuff again. And luckily it was for the monks who kept that information alive, because they were the only people who could read and write, and they were copying the ancient manuscripts and translating. Also in the Arab world, they got a lot of the Greek manuscripts, and that's where they had their golden age of science, by translating what the ancient Greeks were able to do. And in the time of the Hellenistic era, which is like 300 to 100 BC, the Greeks were having some amazing discoveries. Archimedes, he discovered so many things, and that was all rediscovered in the Middle Ages, which led on to the Renaissance, which led to the modern age. So we have to thank the ancient world. Yeah,
that's super cool. I mean, I forgot that little I never knew that, but what actually caused the Renaissance to be the Renaissance, and that's the story, is that they got the ancient manuscripts by the Romans, huh?
Well, wow. Yeah, and that's why the Arabs had their revolution 1,000 years ago. They got it from the Greek manuscripts, because they took over that part of the Greek world where the Greeks had been. So the ancients left us with a lot.
Yeah. Thank God that we, and that we're doing this here right now. The little things about keeping documentation and conversations and keeping it documented, so we can look back at it and learn and teach everybody, because our population is still skyrocketing. I was looking through your chapter on the Asian subterranean stuff, and that seemed to to me more fascinating because it was really detailed. It was probably some of the more detailed stuff that I saw, because out of the photos in the book. What was some of your favorite places in subterranean Asia?
Well, not so much dug into the earth, but dug into the rocks in these massive cave systems. One was Ajanta, Ellora, and some of these magnificent temples were built down from the surface into the earth, into Ellora. And God knows how they did that about 1,000 years ago. And most people have seen the picture of that, but they don't realise how massive it is. So they actually started at ground level and built downwards to create these magnificent temples, like about 100 feet deep. I haven't seen them, unfortunately, but if you look up Ellora, you will see this magnificent structure called the Kalayza. Now, the only other people who did such a feat were the ancient Ethiopians. They also built structures from the top down into the rocks. And they churches.
Yes. Yeah, there's that very famous church that's like has walls all the way around the edges and it's built into the ground.
Yeah, but from top to bottom, beautiful sculptured buildings. It's mind-boggling how they did it.
Yeah, these I'm looking at them right now on the computer. I'm looking at these pictures, and it's so crazy. It seems like this would take years. Like, I mean, with at least the technology they're telling us they had, it would be like, 100 people polishing rocks and chiseling, or it's just like a 3D printer cutout because it's so perfect and detailed.
I can't figure out how they built the Kalayza in Ellora. Can you imagine how hard it is to start from the top and create a structure like a sculpture from the top down?
Yeah.
It just defies imagination, but they did it. Somehow they did it. We don't know how. They supposedly didn't have any great technology, but amazing stonesmiths of early India. Amazing.
Yeah, Indian architecture is some of the most fascinating to me.
Oh gosh, yes. So incredibly talented with their sculptures and their rock cut structures. I mean, I talked about all the caves, how from Buddhist times most of them were built for the monks. I've seen one of them. Someone on the internet said, "Oh, it's a nuclear structure." No, I don't think so, because it's nuclear structures are underground. This is built into a big rock, so I don't think it could have been a nuclear structure. But
what's a nuclear structure? What is that?
Oh, where people go to hide from a nuclear bomb.
Oh, okay.
It's possible they had that technology.
That's not...
If you look at some of the Indian literature, it seems like they did have very advanced weaponry back in mythological times, where they could destroy cities.
Indra, the arrows of Indra.
Well, that's it. So, they had it, I'd say, in prehistoric times. And it was only kept alive in the legends of, the wars between Rama and all that. But the buildings from that era, we don't have anything older on the surface than about 3000 BC in India. And then off the coast of India, they've found some nice old places. There's some things found in the Gulf of Cambay, which is underwater, and that could be at least 8,000 years old. They've found not structures, but they've found implements. They've also found sunken cities off the other coast of India. One is off the coast of where the old town of Madras is. They actually discovered this sunken temple during that massive tsunami, because when the water retreated hundreds and hundreds of feet into the ocean before it hit us away, they saw these temples, and there were supposed to be 7 temples of legend which were destroyed by flooding in that part of the world. So they found one of them and, of course, got lost again when the waves crashed over it. But, yeah, there are at least 4 sites around India where they have discovered underwater structures, leading many thousands of years old.
Wow. Yeah, I think the Vedic texts are some of the most fascinating, but they have this. I want to believe them. I want to, so I do. I look at the Vedic text and I'm like, yep, they definitely had Vimanas. They were flying around. They understood magnetics. That's how they were able to, they understood frequency. They understood resonance. That's how they were able to make this architecture. They understood color, and alchemy, is color, and nature is color. And so I think their spiritual belief has helped them kind of open up this extra next level creativity.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think ancient India technology and we still haven't really done. And because the Muslims are upset that the Hindus keep finding ancient Hindu things and they feel left out. So, I mean, you seem to offend people everywhere now with archaeology. Because if you're saying that certain people were there or weren't there, it upsets them. But I mean, I don't know. I mean, history's history as far as I'm concerned. And who cares if your ancestors were or weren't there, It's got nothing to do with today.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. You gonna say something, Dan? You got something in there? Give us the juice, Dan.
No, I mean, I only had two more questions left, really. One was Tartessos. What is Tartessos, and where is that located, and what's the history about that?
Tartessos was actually a city known in the Bible. We know it existed, and people wrote about how they traded for the Tartessian people. It was in Spain or off the coast of Spain. Now, they haven't found it. They believe now that there's a swampland called the Doñana at the south of Spain where certain people have claimed to have seen structures buried. Now, some are claiming it's Atlantis, but it could certainly be Tartessos. And that area of southern Spain certainly has had floods and tsunamis in the past. And I certainly believe that there are structures off the coast of places like Cadiz and Huelva. So, but as I said, it seems to be difficult for people to get permission to dive there for politics, and a lot of that area is in the control of the Navy. So, and remember, it's a very contentious area because it's very close to Morocco, so and Gibraltar. So they just don't allow that much diving. I think if they did, they'd find a lot more. And Tartessos is possibly underwater right now, or buried in that
It's possibly underwater or buried. Karen. Hello. Possibly possibly underwater or buried.
Yeah, so either off the coast.
Yeah.
You there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Hello. Possibly Tartessos is possibly underwater or buried.
So off the coast or buried in that national park, which is a swamp. So yeah, buried. It was probably buried by a tsunami and never came back.
And then
there's a town in Greece which was destroyed by a tsunami. Really fat and
lost you again. Can't hear you. Lost you. Hello. Lost you. Lost you.
Oh,
She's back.
hey-oh.
Hello. I can barely hear you. Yes.
Yeah, just come back.
Okay.
Well, maybe let's so we left off at Tartessos, but maybe let's do a couple final wrap-up questions because it's almost been that 2-hour mark.
Yeah.
And then you land one, I'll land one, and then yeah.
All right. My final one was just about like the cart ruts that you see in different places like the Azores and in Egypt.
Yeah.
Do you have any insight into those?
Not really. Obviously, it looks like certain wheeled vehicles, doesn't it?
Yeah.
We don't know. Malta's got a lot of them too. We don't
Okay.
really know what they were. My guess is from something way beyond prehistory. You know, I believe there were very ancient civilizations. We get little pieces of it every now and then, and they could be one of them.
All right. Yeah.
Nice. I wanted to ask you about going a little bit more on Mount Shasta, because in your book you have a cool story on Shasta and how it might be hollowed out and Lemurians and all of that stuff. And that's living in California. It's actually like people really love that. They want that to be true. And Mount Shasta is a beautiful place.
Well, look, I don't know how much of that's New Age and how much is real. I'd say a lot of it is real. New Age, to be honest. I don't know where the legend, the story came from, but there could be I certainly believe there could be tunnels and civilizations deep beneath the earth. I have no problem with that. If Shasta's one of them, well, fine. Also, I talked about the Grand Canyon tunnels and cities they found in the 1920s. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, sorry, you weren't moving. I thought I'd been cut off. I actually know someone who claims that he was taken in there as a child, as an initiate.
Oh, wow.
He said it was a very poisoned place, and it's been destroyed now by the military. But some nasty, evil people were in there, and was not a safe place to go, and they had to decontaminate when they left it. But it did exist, but it doesn't anymore. A lot of these places were destroyed by the military.
Wow.
Now, another thing he said, there's the author Clive Cussler. You heard of him?
No.
I think
he's one of these adventure writers, He's very, very popular, Clive Cussler. Some of what he wrote, he got real information about ancient mysteries, lost cities, lost implements, things like the Grail and things like that. But I was told by this same person that Clive Cussler did get a lot of real information but had to hide it as fiction. And he did write about the sort of lost city in one of his last books. He just died last year, in the Grand Canyon. And he turns it into fiction, but what happened in the story is the goodies and the baddies. There's always goodies and baddies in him. They find it at the end and die big fight, but it turned out it just was a movie prop. That had been a movie that someone had filmed about ancient Egypt many years ago. So the goodies and the baddies all walked out believing it doesn't exist. And then you hear one of the native Hopi, I think, or Navajo, at the very end of the book takes his son into the real ruin that no one else knows about, and tells him, he's been the keeper of knowledge for thousands of years. So,
wow.
Believe what you will.
They couldn't make a movie about that book, unfortunately. It would be too controversial, probably.
Yeah, well, Clive does. He's written probably at least 30 books, and it's always the bad guys after something that the good guys have found. Oh, it's the same plot over and over again, but it's in different countries, different parts of the world. And he does actually, I've been told that some of what he writes about is real, but he's had to hide it as fiction and change it enough so that he didn't get into any sort of trouble. But also the writer Steve Berry.
Initiate? Clive Cussler, it's 2 C's.
He certainly ran a nautical archaeology centre, and he was very, very knowledgeable. So who knows? He could have been very much so. Very, very knowledgeable man. Same with Steve Berry. The same thing. Hides fiction, hides reality behind fiction. He was certain of his books.
Sounds like government. No, I'm just kidding.
Tolkien.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of people have to tell the truth.
Marvel.
They have to tell the truth hidden as fiction. Otherwise, they don't survive very long.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us, Karen. I'm sorry that the audio,
probably my connection.
The connection wasn't very good, but there was a lot of good information in there that we did take out. So we appreciate your time and thank you for sticking with us through that. I know it's probably annoying on your side too to have to deal with that. But thank you very much. We appreciate it. Do you want to tell the people where they can find your books and how to get in touch with you if you want them to, or where to find you?
Well, my books are actually published in America with Adventure Press. What's it called? AUP Press. Adventures Unlimited Press. And that's the guy, David Childress, who is on Ancient Aliens.
Yeah, David Hatcher Childress.
Yeah. He's got a lot of information. He's published my 4 of my books anyway. Excellent. And they can much more easily purchased in America than Australia now, but as ebook I sent you was not the full ebook. It was one of the PDF version, which is can be bought on Amazon or through him. I only just got my own copies last week. So the mail's a bit slow down here with all the, lockdowns, and the flights aren't going as often. So it's a lot easier to buy it in America than here.
Okay.
But I mean,
that's crazy.
I think people find each of the books, Sunken Realms, Water Realms, and Subterranean. Anyone who likes a mystery, anyone who likes unusual knowledge that you don't usually find it elsewhere in the ancient world. That's me. I come up with all that stuff because I love to find out myself. And I think, well, if I like it, other people must as well.
Yep, we love it.
That's right.
We love it.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, well, I'm reading one, and then I'm thinking of the next one. But once I'm on a roll, I'll just keep going.
There it is. We love to hear that. Yeah, please keep them coming.
Oh, thank you. Oh, well, if I get The Dawn of Food published, maybe next year we'll see if he wants to publish that book. But it's interesting looking at where agriculture started everywhere in the world and the different crops and the recipes and who their gods were. And all of these places had gods giving them the agriculture. So it's quite fascinating. I never used to be interested in that either. I thought, boring. But once I started studying it properly, I realised, no, that's interesting because we've got food issues now in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We've got to look at the ancient foods and how they were grown, and we're coming into areas of massive food shortages because the supply lines are getting big cut with the Ukraine thing. So people need this information. We might not be able to grow wheat and all that ourselves, but at least we can know how clever our ancestors were all over the world at creating their own food and their own water supply. So I really admire the ancestors.
Yeah, us
beautiful.
too. Also, the other fascinating thing that I find is like the origin of dogs and horses and
Yeah.
things like that, and like where they came from or originated from is pretty interesting. It all seems to be along that same parallel line that runs through China and um, Europe. So that's pretty
Yeah, and
fascinating.
Central Asia is where the horses came from.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Bow
ancient
tie.
Chinese and Mexicans ate dogs,
Yeah.
whereas other cultures, used dogs. I mean, just hunting and dogs just love humans. They just want to be with it. We just want to be with each other.
No, they're awesome.
They are.
Great.
The beautiful creatures, but cats too. I mean, I'm a cat person as well, and the cats came as they started to help eat the mice when people were storing grain like 10,000 years ago. The cats would come and eat the mice, and so they'd come and the people would feed them, and they stayed.
There it is.
That's why they become domesticated.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, actually. Karen, I want to leave you with one sweet documentary because I really like the angle that you're taking on your new book. And we love food. I've cooked food professionally for a long time and taught cooking to kids and all that stuff. And the history of food is really important. And this documentary is called Seed, The Untold Story. And it was...
I missed all of that.
Oh, no.
Said, yeah.
There's a documentary you should watch. It's really great. It's called Seed, The Untold Story. And it's a beautiful documentary. Please watch it. It supports a Portland documentarian. Did a great job. And yeah, it's kind of just about, I mean, it's more of within the last like 100 years to 150 years of where we've gotten today. But let me tell you guys, we have lost hundreds and thousands of varieties of food.
Yes.
Cauliflower used to have 200 different types of varieties, so on and so forth. And so you go to the grocery store and our ancestors would puke. They would be sick.
Yeah.
They wouldn't eat any of it. They wouldn't touch it because it's not even close to being what was nourishing them, and fueling them. So I think it's a great project idea. And thank you so much, Karen, for coming on.
Oh, well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you, Fire Tribe, for listening.
Wake up. Wake up. You are about to enter the
All right, welcome back, Fire Tribe, to the prologue.
What's up?
So that was a really good interview with Karen. The only unfortunate thing was like she started cutting out a lot and significant times when the juicy stuff was just coming. But I feel like there was enough there that we can edit around some of it and try to give you guys a good episode. Like we said in the beginning, we're kind of aware that she's in Australia, so her connection at this time wasn't too great, unfortunately. But we will try to have her on again soon down the road and see if we can get a better connection. But some of the things she said was pretty fascinating. I love everything, man. Subterranean realms, and we didn't really get into America too much, which was hey, that's fine. But there's a lot of other good stuff in there, and we know about the subterranean realms in America and where they connect at, and all these different places that are said to have these underground places. And so I think from that we can reference to these other places and see that things were going on even in certain places in America that she did touch on. We know that they were here also. So there had to have been, in my opinion, some people that were making these underground worlds or tunnel systems purposely everywhere. I mean, how else were all of these places doing similar things everywhere? So I find that pretty fascinating.
Yeah, man, it's only one Earth. It's like we're just on this one planet. So it's like something happens over here, it's likely to happen over here. It just, I mean, we share traditions, we share, commonalities and stuff. So, I honestly, I'm not shocked when I find things like that anymore, but what I am looking for is that juice, man. I'm looking for that resonance juice, dude. I'm looking for that, like, that golden copper top with the mercury lined magnets and the bells and but I thought that was fascinating, and when you guys go and get her book, which you should, because you get more juice. It's all juice. There's no filler, right? Like her book is written, it goes by place. It tells you exactly about that place. Boom, right on the next place. There's no fluff. It's just straight fucking heat. It's juice. It's awesome. But they were finding a lot of these caves, dude, that they would have a certain healing resonance when there would either be a woman's voice or it was tuned to a man's voice in a drum. Like, how cool is that, man? Like, I want to go there and vibe out, dude. Oh.
Yeah, for sure, man. I mean, yeah, that's pretty interesting. I think she said it didn't vibe with a woman's voice. It was mostly either a man or a drum.
That was the one she was referencing. There's another one. There's multiple. They all have different like megahertz that they resonate with, which is cool. But there was one other specific one. It was low frequency.
What would creating all that resonance inside of like a tunnel? What would that do?
I think so.
Definitely vibrate shit, right?
Yeah. And so like when you think about our bodies, right? Our bodies are we have our auric fields, and so just like when you're using tuning forks, how that kind of that biofield tuning works, it's like the same thing. And so if you ever done like gong meditation,
could you like move a magnet through the bottom of the tunnel and make rock float or something?
Given the right, like, so that's another thing. What are these rocks made of? What specific type of stone are they using? Are they choosing where they build this? Are they just building it out of necessity or habit because they have to? Or are they choosing?
Some of the stone quarries are 100 miles away.
Yeah, that's interesting, right?
So they're bringing it from somewhere purposely.
Yeah.
So I wonder if something, with the resonance and creating the resonance inside, if that can create some type of lift or something and give an object the power to float. I don't know.
That's the story, man. That's the story. I saw a lot of the stories, that they had that deep inside of some of the pyramids that they would have crystal setups and a configuration, and then use resonance, sound frequency, what have you, to lift things, and what they had to be within the parameter of the crystalline setup.
Have you been finding that in some of the books that you've been reading lately?
That one specifically, I heard about that a couple years ago. I don't remember. But no, when I'm talking about the resonance, that's a tricky part, man, because that is one of the things that's totally being suppressed. Is anything that's free energy, right? Like anything that's free energy at all. So like, obviously electricity, right? Like they're not going to give us wireless electricity because, so on and so forth. But even like just resonance and sound frequency, like, we know the Rockefellers changed the standard tuning of all instruments back in the early 40s. And so it's like they know about the power of resonance. They know about this power. And so when we look at the suppression of history, that's where my intuition has led me, is that there's something fascinating down the resonance rabbit hole that answers a lot of fucking mysteries, bro.
Well, and the military cover-ups of some of these places where they find shit, obviously they're finding stuff and covering it up and then using that information to build some type of military weapon or some type of military craft or who knows what, you know. That's like what they did with Tesla, right? They swooped up all his shit. and then all of a sudden we have these different types of things going on in military installations, not to the public, and now they're trying to switch it, get rid of all that old stuff, and then bring in all this new stuff now, because now they're probably even farther ahead of that.
Oh yeah,
what they want us to know. So
yeah, right. I can't even touch on the shit that they got, bro. Stargates, portals, the Hadron Colliders.
Then that makes me go like, well, then UFOs are just military and they're not actually aliens and stuff. But one of the interesting things was with the little tunnels that she was talking about and the little people, maybe. We see this always in mythology, and you have like Nordic people with like dwarves and stuff, and it's also in the alien mythology, right, with the Nordic aliens and these little gray aliens and stuff, and people, these little grays underground and stuff like that. It's pretty interesting how that crosses over from ancient past to future. I don't know what that is.
Well, time is not linear, so it's like they're there and they're there in the future. The future is the past, and
they're there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I don't know, man. It's crazy. I like this topic though. I love going underground and proving that there are things underground, that go back way farther than civilization. I mean, some of the dates she was throwing back, I'm like, this is all old. Like, this is all of these were built fucking prehistory. Like, what is that? Like, that's cool as shit, man.
Copper piping, 7,000 years. Is that what she said?
What? Yeah.
Copper piping separating drinking water from your discharge poop and pee.
Your discharge pallet plate.
7,000 years. That's fucking forever ago.
It's crazy.
That encompasses all known history that we are aware of.
Exactly. That's over 6,000. Yeah, and they were piping. The thing is you gotta imagine what it takes to get the copper out of the ground, to separate it, to forge it,
right?
To
and
make
that goes
pipes.
Into like the copper mines.
Yes,
I think that's in Wisconsin too. Yeah, where that lake is that she was talking about, and possibly subterranean realms there. So maybe these were mining tunnels and they were mining the shit out of copper there, or I think it was Minnesota or Michigan. I don't know.
Yeah, Chad Stumke was talking about that too.
Yeah. So
dude, yeah, exactly.
To talk to him about.
I think also it correlates, man, with it. You're just talking about, bringing up the aliens, right? But got big quotes over here over my hands. I'm doing the quotation marks. People, aliens, right? It was aliens.
I mean, sometimes I'm down with aliens and sometimes I'm not. I don't know. I go back and forth on that one.
In this case, I'm down with it, right? Like think, if they had LiDAR scanning, right? Or like they just knew where these deposits were, because you got to imagine, it's like when we had the Copper Age, right? It wasn't just like, bam, one day we just knew where all the fucking copper was. We knew how to work it. We knew, it takes a long time for these things to get discovered, or maybe not, maybe just like a couple of years, but what if there was, these outside forces that came here that knew exactly what the fuck they were looking for mineral wise, and they knew they had the technology to find it. I think that can oftentimes maybe be the case, just because it's a really easy out. The alien stories are always like a really easy out. You're just like, hell yeah, aliens. You're like, oh, okay, yeah, for sure, done. We're done talking, right?
Yeah, I like to go with more ancient humans than ancient aliens, but there's still that, once you go back far and far enough in time, there's still that possibility where aliens could have been here, hundreds of thousands of years ago, millions of years ago. According to the Sumerian tales, 200,000 years ago is when they made it to this planet. So that's also pretty interesting to me. It could have just been an ancient thing that they seeded this place and then bailed out or whatever,
Wow. I just had a weird random thought. Think about this. Okay, think about this. Okay. We're mining. Okay, so the Earth is magnetic, right? We have these magnetic poles. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Things are magnet. Rocks are magnetic. Metals are magnetic. Okay. All right. What if we, by mining these metals, are thus throwing off the magnetic pole or contorting it of sorts of the Earth? And so it's like if we're mining all this shit from up north, maybe that's what's causing sinkings of land, or some sort of like shift, because or if there were fucking aliens that came, or some sort of outside help. We'll just call it outside help, right? There was some outside help that came and took a bunch of metal or took a bunch of these things. Everything within the system of the Earth is complete, or it's there and it exists, and that's how it exists. But when you move it could probably fuck it up.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it changes the balance, right?
Yeah. I had that thought because I'm thinking, I'm like, we're mining all these things. The Earth is changing. Maybe there's times when the more we mine, the more the Earth changes and there's more catastrophes.
I mean, they were mining a lot and there's a lot of catastrophes at that point in time. So,
right?
I mean, there's a possible connection there. It's worth more digging.
Yeah.
Or maybe not worth more digging. Worth
right.
looking into.
Yeah.
Looking into.
Yeah. No dig. Okay, guys, calm down. Trying to maintain the weather we got. I don't need a tsunami over here.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know, man. Maybe, because a lot of times some of these alien type sightings, UFO sightings seem to be some type of orb or some type of energy that's kind of going around. So maybe there's some type of thing going on with metals and piezoelectric electricity and stuff like that, some type of pressure and something else going on that's creating these different lights in the sky. Sometimes I don't know, but sometimes they don't seem like they could be that. Sometimes they're completely different, so it's hard to say.
So many different lights. Yeah, we've seen so many fucking lights in the sky, and they're all these shapes, and they do different dips and sways, and it's nuts. Let's talk about this from a flat Earth perspective, okay? We're not talking about outer planetary, okay? What is the alien in the flat Earth paradigm?
From the outer limits.
Word. Yeah, outside the ring, the X ring.
Well, I mean, you could even say that they're just coming up from underground. Maybe there's an underground civilization. Maybe there's something in the hollow Earth, or maybe there's not even a lot of them. Maybe there's only 2 like big cavernous cities in the whole planet.
Yeah.
And they live there without war and everything, and they're able to develop technology, and then they trick government or whatever into using it and selling it and getting things out of them for it. I mean, there's all kinds of different possibilities that you could go with there. I see on Inner Tradition, there was a guy who has a book called Alien World Order, and so maybe we can get him on or something.
Yeah.
Talk about that.
It also too, the frequency, right? Like being able to just basically be invisible. There's that, they're just able to pop through these dimensional walls, which, is just as far out as talking about coming from another planet, coming from, millions of miles away, or coming through a dimensional force field. Either way, it's far out. I haven't experienced it. I'm down though. I got my crystals, baby. I'm about to start humming. I'm gonna do my ohms tonight. Maybe my room will portalize itself and find myself floating somewhere. I don't know. Let's call each other tonight and ohm on the phone, on speakerphone. You wanna? We'll do a group call. Everybody listening. Here's Dan's phone number. Give him a call at midnight. Ready?
Reminds me of Up in Smoke, the movie with Cheech and Chong. Hey man, you gotta do calm you down, man. Freaking out. I think I'm feeling better, man. Freak them out. Yeah, man. That's all I got, really.
Yeah, same.
No, so can end it there. Thanks, Fire Tribe, for listening. Thank you very much. Go support the Patreon and wake up.
Wake up, 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 wake up.
Life does just seem to be a blur.